Welcome to the meeting. I'm Councillor Steele and I'll be chairing today's subcommittee. Please be advised that this meeting is being live streamed on the YouTube's channel. To introduce the officers, to my left are the planning officers and the council solicitor, and to my right is the committee manager. Also within the meeting room are the subcommittee members who are all present except for Councillor Heslop Mullins at the moment. Arrangements for dealing with planning application, an officer's summary and update will be given. Speakers are restricted to 3 minutes with a warning when 30 seconds remain. Members are to note the information given by officers and speakers. Any decision proposed which is contrary to the recommendation contained in the report will require reasons if the proposal is to refuse and reasons and conditions if the proposal is to approve the application. To avoid any disruption to the meeting, please ensure mobile phones and iPads are switched on to silent. And whilst you are not speaking, please put your microphone on mute if you've not already done so. And fire procedure, if the fire alarm sounds, you'll be directed where to go. Please follow the instructions given by the officers. Why did I do that? Turning to declarations of pecuniary and non-pecuniary interest. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say I've had 3 communications in connection with item 6 on the agenda from a David Thompson, Dr. David Plews and Penny and Alan Nash. I haven't responded, so I'm not compromised, but I just wanted to let you know that I'd had those 3 communications.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Robson.
Thank you, Chair. Likewise, I responded to 2. I didn't get the other one until today, but
Okay.
I've given no opinions at
To which application? Which number?
To same application.
Oh,
sorry.
And Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I too have received multiple emails regarding item 6. I've not responded.
I think that was probably, by the sound of it, it's gone to all members. Is that correct? Okay. Thank you. And no responses from you. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Councillor Jefferson. You're hiding behind that.
Sorry. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I'm of a similar vein with the emails. I have answered them and said quite clearly that I would look at the agenda because that's what I usually reply with. However, I have one which is item 5. I feel I have a non-pecuniary interest, and I have checked, and it's because the person who is the applicant is a parish councillor elsewhere, and I've seen him at another council. So it's not the person that's in that area. He is a parish councillor at Seaton. So I haven't got any kind of other interest at all.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jefferson. Councillor Dennis.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I've received correspondence in connection with item 4, but I haven't responded or discussed the matter with them.
Thank you. Anywhere else? No, I think that's it. And we'll go to... Right, so can we approve as a correct record the minutes of the subcommittee held on the 4th of August, moved by Councillor Robinson and seconded by Councillor Dennis?
Well done.
And withdrawals?
No withdrawals, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. So we turn to item 6, our first item on the agenda. So this is removal of condition 2 and the erection of livestock building. And this is at the outbuildings west of Home Farm Road, West Lane, Burton Fleming. Do we have an update on this?
No updates, but we have been copied into the email that's gone out to councillors with regards to the petition. Just to be clear, this is the same petition that was provided to us as part of the planning application, and his report is we discuss in the report.
Okay, thank you. And we have 3 speakers on this item. The first is Mrs. Thompson, who is an objector. Mrs. Thompson, are you in the room? Just take a seat there. Just press the button and turn the microphone around to you. You'll be given 3 minutes with a reminder when 30 seconds remain, and start when you're ready.
I am speaking on behalf of well over half the adult population of Burton Fleming, including many farmers and parish councillors who have signed a petition strongly opposing this application. This demonstrates a powerful community consensus. When I first moved to Burton Fleming over 30 years ago, we were surrounded by working farms that defined our rural landscape and supported our community's identity. Over the years, as the population grew, many of these farms moved further into the countryside, acknowledging that modern farming and close residential life are no longer compatible. Even the applicant recognises this, having sold his village-based homestead for housing. Our village has adapted by welcoming visitors through 7 holiday cottages. These bring vital income and jobs to our community, supporting pubs, shops and local attractions. However, the complaints about flies and unpleasant odours from this pig unit are directly affecting our visitors' experiences, resulting in negative online reviews. Enjoying our gardens, eating outdoors, or even opening our windows are simple amenities that are no longer possible, as prevailing winds carry flies and hazardous gases like ammonia straight into our homes. Another serious issue is traffic. Constant feed deliveries, waste removal and livestock transport all funnel down the small back lane never designed for heavy lorries. This makes the road unsafe for cars, children, cyclists and pedestrians, while bringing noise and disruption through the heart of our community. All this is exacerbated by the fact that the unit is less than 40 metres from the nearest house, and the majority of houses are within 400 metres of the unit. This is not in keeping with the guidelines, rural character, heritage and landscape of our small village. I want to stress that this isn't an attack on farming. Far from it. We respect the importance of agriculture, but it's about balance. This pig unit causes ongoing nuisance and harms our quality of life, local economy and the character of our village. As this application is retrospective, we are already experiencing the negative impact of the pig unit. This is matter of fact, not speculation. In conclusion, I urge you to consider the broader impact on our community's future. Refusing this application isn't just about opposing a pig unit, it's about protecting our quality of life, our tourism-based economy, local amenities, and our right to enjoy our homes without unwanted disturbance. Thank you.
Thank you. Just take a seat back in the gallery. You just press your microphone off and then take a seat back where you were. Thank you.
The agents.
Right, we have a second speaker, Mr. Pick, who is the agent. Again, Mr. Pick, you have 3 minutes and a reminder when 30 seconds remain.
Thank you, Chair, members. So this application we submitted in last year it was a retrospective application for the building last year. It was approved. That application was as a small pig unit. It was approved, but it was approved with a condition allowing the use of the building for pigs to operate for 12 months as a trial period, so environmental health and others could monitor it to determine whether they thought it was acceptable. Just in terms of in pig terms, this development is tiny. We're talking about a weaner shed, which is a capacity of 440. In comparison, the other pig unit, which is in the village of Burton Fleming's, got 2,000 finishers. So it's a tiny building. So when we submitted the original application, we had full odour impact assessment done to the Environment Agency's H4 odour management standards. And that odour impact assessment shows that the development was compliant with the Environment Agency threshold for protecting amenity. We also had a noise impact assessment done, which also showed it was compliant. So Environmental Health have reviewed the application and the supporting documentation and offered no objections, but had a caveat in there that as with any farm, there could be the potential for occasional odours and noise. In terms of traffic generation, as it's small, this development only generates 30 lorries a year. So we're talking about one vehicle every couple of weeks on average. So it's a very small development. It's been reviewed by the statutory consultees. Environmental Health haven't got an objection to it, and it's recommended for approval. So it's respectfully requested the permission's granted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pick. Just take a seat back in the gallery. And then we have Councillor Bibb.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, councillors. I'm speaking today on behalf of the residents of Burton Fleming, 158 of whom have signed a petition opposing this retrospective application for a permanent indoor pig farming operation. The main concern is the very close proximity of the pig farm to residential areas. Although not mandatory, it's recommended that commercial piggeries should be at least 1,000 metres from residential areas, and small-scale piggeries should be at least 500 metres away. As you can see from the committee plan, this development is literally next door and across a narrow road from a residential area, with a very large part of the village being within a few hundred metres. This, of course, has a huge impact on the lives of a large number of villagers whose lives are plagued by foul odours from the farm, the noise from the pigs' machinery and operations, and the relentless fly outbreak coming from the farm. I've visited the site and witnessed the loss of amenity caused by this development. Residents are unable to use their gardens, eat outside, or even open their windows. This is an unacceptable assault on basic freedoms that we take for granted, and is severely impacting the mental health and well-being of the residents. These are country people who are not in any way opposed to farming. Indeed, a number of farmers have signed their petition, but they are decent people looking to retain the simple pleasures of village life that this abomination is taking away from them. This is not traditional farming. It's an intensive industrial operation. And as you can see from the objections, there are deep concerns about animal welfare. Should this application be approved, it would set a precedent for further industrial development, which would undermine the heritage and identity of Burton Fleming. So I would appeal to the committee to reject this application on the legitimate material planning grounds of proximity to a residential area and loss of amenity. Let's listen to our residents and provide them with the health, safety and quality of life that we all deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bibb. Just take a seat again. Councillor Lee, I think, was first. Sorry, I'll continue.
Thank you, Chair. And I must confess, I've got contradictory thoughts on this application, because normally I'm extremely supportive, as I think everybody in this room will be, of local farmers, because obviously they are so important to our community in East Yorkshire and, you know, in generally across the country, and certainly always very supportive of that. My problem with this, I think Councillor Bibb has summed it up very eloquently, is the proximity to the properties that are close by. And clearly pigs are naturally animals that do create some odours, as we know, and obviously they attract insects, and they also aren't the quietest of animals. So I think ultimately, you know, anything within the proximity of people living close by clearly are going to be affected. And so, as I say, I'm slightly conflicted with this. I suppose in some respects I need some guidance from the officers, because I haven't seen it in the papers. Councillor Bibb mentioned a couple of distances that planning guidance would give us with respect to these units towards and in terms of their proximity to dwellings. Could I have that confirmed by the officers with respect to what the recommendation is? Because if I was to take a view at the end of this debate that I would refuse it, I'd like to have something substantive to refuse it on, and I wouldn't refuse it unless I have, frankly. But I am concerned that 46 metres in, or I think it was 46 metres in the papers. I think the speaker herself mentions it was less than 40, but irrespective of the difference between those two figures, it seems to be very close to dwellings. And I don't think it's our business in this committee to inflict what in effect would be a very difficult position with local residents. The fact that, you know, obviously might isn't always right, but the fact that there are 158 people in this village have bothered, if you like, to make their views known on this is a sign that there's a problem here. And I just wanted to get this clarification on distances before I take a final view on it. But I am a bit concerned about it, if I'm truthful, which is conflicting normally with my natural support of farming generally. So could I have some clarification on the distances, please?
Thank you, Councillor Lee. I'll hand over to Tom.
Through the chair. As far as the 500 metre rule guidance is concerned, it's certainly not planning guidance. It's as I understand it, it might be DEFRA guidance, but it's certainly not in the planning remit of things. There is a 400 metre rule, but that relates to when things are permitted development under the agricultural permitted development tolerances. And certainly it's not relevant to the planning application process, because as far as the requirements for a planning application concerned, there is no set limit, as it were. Each application is considered on its own merits. And obviously we've set out in the report as to why we believe this to be acceptable. But there's no sort of arbitrary limit there in terms of distance.
So if I can come back, Chair, if I may. So really this is a subjective decision about how we think this is going to affect local residents. There's no specific guidance about distances by what you've said, and therefore really we would therefore have a bit more leniency in terms of any planning conditions that we're saying, because obviously we can make a decision if there's no guidance given to us that we think it's too close and the loss of amenity is too great to local residents. I'm just wanting to make sure that I'm on, if you like, good planning grounds for the debate, really.
Yeah, through the chair, I'd need to know specifically what your request is, to be fair, to say whether or not it's acceptable in planning terms or reasonable in planning terms.
Well, I mean, obviously what you said is that there are no specific planning distances required. So really the argument would then be loss of amenity, but we can't highlight any specific distances. So 46 metres or whatever it is precisely to a nearest house, to me, seems extremely close, irrespective of the fact that there's only 440 pigs and there's only relatively small truck movements. I don't think the truck movements are, in a sense, going to be a big issue in my opinion. But the 440 pigs, you know, whether there's 400 or 4,000, one assumes that there's still, in terms of scale, quite a bit of noise, and indeed the principles of what pigs do and the odour and the flies and the insects clearly would apply, whether it's 400 or 4,000. So if there's no guidance, I'll leave it there at this point, listen to the debate and take a view. But I'm a bit concerned that this is just very close proximity to people who live in the village.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just want to reiterate that what Councillor Lee has just said there about proximity, obviously, and also the sheer amount of signatures and complaints that have been, you know, put forward by the villagers themselves. It says in the report that no objections have been progressed to the point of identifying any serious harms. I'm just wondering what kind of investigation was taken place, and what would, you know, what would be a serious harm?
Can you help with that one, Tom?
Indeed. Through the chair, what is being referred to in the report is complaints made under the statutory noise nuisance regime. What we're just simply highlighting was what the environmental health officers advised us, that yes, complaints were raised and they were investigated within their powers, but nothing was ever progressed to the point of there being actual identified harm generated from them complaints.
Thank you for that. Can I just say as well that I after what Councillor Bibbers said, I do think as well that the animal welfare issue, I don't know how far this has been investigated. And I know it says in the report that this is in fact a material planning consideration, although it's not, it is weighted as low. I mean, has there been any investigation into what some of the, I mean, I read in the report about squealing, lack of ventilation and various other things. Was that ever looked into, or would that not be a council officer's role? Is that Department of Environment as well?
Through the chair, sorry. Yeah, indeed, it is something that's dealt with under separate regimes. The reason we said you don't weight it very highly is simply because other legislation covers that. So it would be a bit wrong of us to sit there and say that we will investigate it to the nth degree, because really it isn't within our remit to do so. But, you know, as case law has established recently, it is a material consideration, but we weight it very low simply because it is covered under other legislative regimes.
Thank you. Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As councillors, we're here to represent our residents, and there's a strong body of opinion against this planning application. I note that it's retrospective. I note that the operators overstayed their welcome and had to be reminded by the planning team in June this year that that was the case. It's very difficult to see how something so close to the residents cannot be causing too much noise, too much smell. There's ammonia in the air. If the advice is that it should be this sort of unit should be ideally 1 kilometre away, and then we hear 400 metres, they're both very different from 46 metres. And I just, I know it's difficult when we're not looking actually at a building to make a decision on, that we're looking at the effect of what's in the building and the work going on around it, as opposed to the residents trying to run their own bed and breakfast businesses and just enjoy a reasonable quality of life. And I realise we have to look at what we have in front of us, and having listened to everybody, but the opinion in the local village in Burton Fleming is such that we have to take that on board. People are impassioned about this, and I understand that. And I just need a bit more enlightenment on this proximity, because I just don't think it's been sufficiently explained. And as Councillor Lee has said, we're being guided, but we're not being told. And therefore, if it's not a statutory obligation, then we have to use our own judgment. Is there any more that the planning officer can say on that, please?
Tom?
Through the chair, I can't really offer you much more than I already have said. Ultimately, it is the suggested guideline of the proximity, which has been mentioned, is covered under separate legislation. We simply have to consider what's in front of us as far as making a planning decision. I mean, sadly, I can't really offer you much more in terms of what has already been said. I mean, the only possible suggestion I could make is that clearly, if you are concerned and you would like to see the premises for yourself, you could always move for a site visit if that's of any benefit to you. But certainly, as far as giving you any further guidance on this, unfortunately, it is set out in the report, and I have explained the situation as far as the DEFRA guidelines are concerned.
Sorry, thank you. That I was going to suggest that we might need a site visit. Thank you.
Councillor Robson.
Thank you, Chair. I
I'm going to take things from a slightly different angle. I'm going to pick up on what Councillor Howard was saying about the animal welfare. And I did a little bit of calculation and worked out that if the pigs actually had this building to themselves as their home, if there was no room for the human beings to walk around, but just they had it totally to themselves, we're looking at approximately 270 square meters that's occupied by 440 pigs, which basically means to say that each animal, a living sentient being, will have less space to move around in than the size of each of these television sets. Now that, if that is not intensive farming, I don't know what is. I don't think that the intensive keeping of animals like this is either sustainable or ethical. So consequently, I'm going to propose that we refuse this application on the grounds that it's not sustainable as in clauses S1 and S2 of the local area plan. And unfortunately, the ethical side of things isn't actually covered as a material planning objection, which I find very difficult to believe. So as I said, I'll propose that we refuse this, and also on the grounds of the impact on the community and the loss of amenity on the local community. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Robson. I just wondered whether our whether you could have.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the application, we need to consider the application that's before us. We have had expert views from Public Protection, and they've obviously had the opportunity of being able to see the unit in action over the temporary period. So obviously that you should weigh that in your considerations today. But also you get the experience of the local community, so I understand that totally. In terms of ethical considerations, that's not something we need to look at in terms of planning balance here. And also in terms of the space for the pigs, that's something that we dealt with via the legislation. So today we're just looking at the use of the shed. Okay.
Thank you, Jem. Councillor Heslop-Mullins.
Sorry, Chair. Just before Councillor Heslop-Mullins speaks, I just want to clarify the position. You came in a bit late after the first speaker had spoken, so you're in a situation where you wouldn't be able to move anything and you wouldn't be able to vote on this application. Just wanted to make that clear.
I didn't expect to.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, but I can say that I'm in a bit of a quandary. I'm similar to Councillor Lee. I was surprised to find that a third of the population of Burton Fleming have signed a petition against this, which does suggest that it's quite important to them. And as we were supposed to be looking at how this affected the community, we might have assessed it on our beliefs, but that might not be the way it's perceived or even understood by the people that live there. And it does worry me that what we're doing is sticking to the narrative of planning and not to the narrative of community. And I do feel that this is going to be a problem for me when I'm trying to work out which way I don't vote. But it may help if perhaps we were to do a site visit, and I will therefore pass over to somebody who can recommend it, because I can't.
Councillor Jefferson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think it's quite clear, listening to the councillors in here today, that it would be far better if we go and have a look for ourselves, because we all feel, I'm sure, great sympathy for the people of Burton Fleming. And also we need to look at this from planning point of view. So I'm going to move, obviously, a site visit, as Councillor Heslop Mullins was trying to do but can't do. I'll do it, and if somebody seconds me, I think it would be a very good idea for us to go there and then come back again in 3 weeks and look at it again.
I think we're lots of hands up and a lot of nodded heads on this one. So seconding Councillor Smith.
Thank you.
Did you were down to speak as well? Did you have anything to add?
I was only going to suggest what my colleague has suggested. I kind of agree with everything you've said, Councillor Lee. I'm shocked at how close it is, but I think seeing's believing, and we owe this community a little visit down to Burton Fleming to go and see it for ourselves. It's the least we can do.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Robson.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask the officer if when the site visit takes place, there will be 440 pigs in there? Because if there's not, there's absolutely no point in doing it.
Good point.
Through the chair, I can make that request, but I can make absolutely no promises whatsoever.
Yeah. And yeah, okay.
Okay.
So it's been proposed and seconded that we defer this application for a site visit, bringing the application back to a later committee. All those in favour of this proposal to defer, please raise your hand. That's 9. All those against, please raise your hand, and that's 1. And that's carried to defer for a site visit.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Heslop Mullins, before we move on, do you have any declarations to declare? Right, so we move on to item 4, which is erection of 5 dwellings, and this is in Southgate, Hunton Cranswick. Do we have any updates on this?
Yes, just one update, Madam Chairman. A local resident had raised an objection with the application, which discussed the lack of boundary treatment details submitted with the application. Whilst this is identified in the committee report, we have reviewed the plans and we now consider it necessary to include a condition requiring details to be submitted. As such, I will just quote to you what we're going to say, but should members be minded to approve it, we are going to be adding the following condition on, which is that no development shall take place above damp-proof course until full details of all the boundary treatments, together with any details of any materials to be used, have been submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority. Development shall be carried out in accordance with the approved details before the development hereby approved is first brought into use. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So we have councillor Bibb to speak on this. You know the ropes, councillor Bibb. Start when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep it brief because I think you'll be getting sick of hearing me. So I'm not going to take up too much of your time. As I've already spoken in previous meetings about the unsuitability of the Southgate site for this type of development based on nature conservation, access via a narrow single lane track, the lack of need for large 4-bedroomed houses in a village where smaller, more affordable properties are required, boundary fence concerns, rising main alignment, and if I read the room correctly at the previous meeting, the main concern of the committee, which is the flood risk, with video and photographic evidence of sewage overflow and flooding already provided, without the cumulative effects of this further development causing more public health and safety risks. But after corresponding with the Hutton Cranswick Parish Council, they've requested that any final decision is made democratically by the committee and not deferred for delegated approval. So I'd ask the committee to take this request into account in their deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Right, it's over to members. Silence. Is silence meaning you're going with officer's recommendation? Councillor Smith?
I wasn't comfortable with it the first time. I'm not comfortable with it this time. Nothing's changed really from when we sat down and heard it before. Aside from that, I don't know what else you want me to say. I know for planning reasons we're kind of locked down on which way we can go with it, but I'm absolutely not comfortable with it. I saw the video evidence of the street flooding. I don't feel anything's been done to resolve that. In our pre-meeting, when we were able to discuss this plan, there's no confirmation that Yorkshire Water have even gone to look at the site unless that's changed. I don't think the access is very good. I don't agree with the highways report. I just think it's the wrong development in the wrong place, but I don't know how to fight it.
Thank you, councillor Smith. Was it councillor Howard first, I think?
Yeah, I'd just like to absolutely reiterate what councillor Smith has just said. Thank you.
Thank you. And councillor Lee?
Thank you. As every member of this committee knows, we've been around this one for quite a long time, and clearly I'm not going to go over the old ground. I think that clearly we've moved forward with that, and looking for something substantial to to object about it. I'm rather like councillor Bibb in some respects, is that it doesn't seem to fulfil a need, but that is not a planning issue, and therefore I'm not going to cite that in terms of any local reason. My question is, before I can sort of come to a conclusion on it, is I'm just trying to search for it. Tom, you might be able to help me a little bit. Is that although Yorkshire Water has no objection to the reserve matters applications and the rest of it, there was a little bit of unsurety somewhere in the report, and I've just been trying to find it, where basically they didn't want to take all the water in terms of this through the system. But there was a little bit of an, if you like, sort of vagueness about how they were going to deal with it. And rather like was mentioned a minute ago, there doesn't seem to be any active participation from Yorkshire Water to have got this sorted out. So we could agree something in principle today, and I'm really struggling not to agree with it, because I think we've, as I said, been around the houses and done everything on it. But at the same time, in practical terms, I'm probably not very confident that Yorkshire Water have done their homework on this, and it could easily result in some big issues locally for local residents, with foul sewage, foul water, and all the rest of it. So, Tom, can you put my mind at rest regarding Yorkshire Water's contribution to this report, which doesn't seem to be terribly substantive, and whether or not they are 100% committed to the fact that this is not going to cause a problem locally?
Yeah, through the chair. I think the bit in the report that you were looking for is actually on page 29, 29 going on to page 30, where the case officer has set out what is going on in terms of drainage and how this would work. I mean, obviously, to sort of reiterate this again, what I think has to be made clear is that essentially foul water and surface water will be dealt with under two separate mechanisms. Foul water will pump to the main sewer, but it will be done so at a controlled rate, and it is the lowest rate that they can get it to. Surface water will discharge to a local water course, and that will be dealt with via a storage tanks on the site, where effectively that will collect the storm water, and that will kind of effectively step release it into the local drainage system. Yorkshire Water, after consultation, and that will be done again at a very low controlled rate. And I think just to reiterate a point which we've made, foul water will be controlled at a level of 4 litres per second, whereas surface water will be 2 litres per second. I think I've got that the right way around. But the issue, of course, is that Yorkshire Water and indeed our own land drainage team are both satisfied that that is manageable. I mean, at the end of the day, we aren't dismissing local residents' concerns at all, and we do accept that there is issues on Southgate. There's a limit to what we can go to resolve them through this application. If you aren't satisfied that Yorkshire Water are doing their job properly, then as ward members, you are more than entitled to approach them on your own terms and see what can be done. We have to make a planning judgment based on what is in front of us. And ultimately, the planning merits of this case are as such that drainage will not be an issue to the extent that will be problematic, and can be addressed via the scheme that they have put forward. And unfortunately, there's not really much else I can say about that, but hopefully that can clarify things from a planning perspective.
Thank you, Chair. If I may come back just to briefly say, look, I think sort of reluctantly I accept that. I think, as I said, it's more down to the difference or the confidence that I would have that this has been addressed in the detail that it should have been. But at the same time, apart from the drainage issues and the foul water issues, surface water, I can't see another planning reason to refuse this, if I'm truthful. I don't like it. And I think the highways thing, the highways connection isn't good. But again, we don't have any objection in terms of our officers on that specifically. And we can't refuse an application based on the fact that they're going to be quite large houses for a community that arguably, I think they're going to sell them, so that isn't an issue. But obviously, it doesn't necessarily fulfil the need of local people. Yeah, reluctantly, I'm going to propose officers' recommendations are accepted because I can't think of another reason. We've done this. I mean, I think I remember going to this site about 2, possibly 3 years ago. So it's been in the balance since then, and I think we've got to conclude this, in my opinion, today. I don't think there's any point in well, we don't have a decision. We're going to either refuse it or agree it today. But at the same time, I think we've done this one in great detail over the last couple of years in varying forms. So, as I said, reluctantly, and I do understand, local concerns. But if we're satisfied with the water issue, then I will recommend approval.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. I think the next was Councillor Norman.
Thank you, Chair. So this is all tied around the Yorkshire Water issue. As we've heard, the attenuation and pumping back into the foul water and the surface water drainage is as low as can possibly be achieved. I think personally it's better going that way than going by the potential of the developer still wanting to develop the site, which he's got a lot of money sunk into this project already. He's going to want to continue on with it. So his option, therefore, would be to go down the route of a private sewerage system, which would be something like septic tanks or the likes, which are probably worse for the environment and for the area than having it dropped into at least Yorkshire Water's pipes and sewerage network. So again, I suppose one of the questions for Mr. Booth Robinson would be, do we know whether there's any plans put in place for maintenance of the pumps and attenuation kit? And is there any way that we can condition that to make sure that is available and is put in place? And I think move on from there, as Councillor Lee's just said.
Tom, can you help with that?
1 moment.
Yep. Give us a moment.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them issues are covered through separate legislation, particularly when you're going into the main sewer, because obviously Yorkshire Water have their own legislation to comply with. We've gone quite far with getting as much information as we can, and what we've done is we've put suggested condition number 8, which effectively ties the developer to them details that have been provided. So I would recommend, from my perspective, that there's little merit in trying to get more out of the developer where that's concerned, because it is already covered via the information that's supplied.
Thank you. In that case, I'm happy to second the proposal to defer and delegate approval.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Norman. Councillor Smith.
I just had one quick question, and that was, with this surface water, within planning, do we not have an obligation to the neighbouring buildings that are already there, that they're not going to be subjected to flooding? Because I saw the videos and I saw the pictures that were sent to me last time I sat here. We're not talking about a puddle, we're talking about a lot of water. So that was coming from that site before anything was built on it. And that's what really, really concerns me, is that it's not so much that they're going to build these houses, it's the after effects that follow it, and where the guys who've got to put our heads on the pillows and sleep afterwards, having made that decision.
Yeah, through the chair. I mean, the issue is, in policy terms, we have to make sure that the site is safe from flooding and doesn't create poor flood risk elsewhere. That's essentially the policy requirement from our perspective. Now, again, I don't really want to reiterate what we've already said in the report and what we've discussed at quite at length previously. But after detailed consideration, this scheme is unlikely to do that. So it is, as far as our obligations are concerned, in accordance with policy.
Thank you, Tom. Councillor Robson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not comfortable with this at all. And I think that the whole drainage business is rather a Heath Robinson solution. I've listened to what Councillor Bibb says, and you know, we can't get enough actually of Councillor Bibb, Chair. He's relaxing to listen to. But I'm afraid this time round I'm going to actually have to agree with Councillor Lee and say that even though it's not a perfect development, we're going to have to allow it. So I was going to actually second it for that reason, but that's where I stand. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Robson. Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. On a separate subject to do with this, I think that policies H1 and H2 and even H4, providing a mix of housing and meeting people's needs, and providing affordable housing, making the most efficient use of the land. I can't see that this has been achieved by this plan. It's a policy of the East Riding of Yorkshire Council to try to get some affordable housing built. And time and again, we see this not being happening. And this is a particular instance where there are executive homes being built and there isn't a mix of housing, there's no affordable housing, and yet it's in a smallish village where this is probably needed. Have the planners anything more to say on that, please?
Over to you, Tom.
Through the chair. There's nothing that I can really add that we haven't already said in the report. In the policies H1, H2, H4, as you've referenced there, have been met in this. And whilst it's obviously the starting point for any application that they need to achieve a mix of housing and also that they need to achieve affordable housing standard levels, this is all subject to two things. And when it comes to affordable housing, obviously it's subject to viability, which, as we've discussed, viability here is an issue. And in terms of mix, that has to be considered in the round. It isn't just a case of you have to achieve these levels and that's that. You do have to consider that in accordance with other material considerations. In this instance, we have explained that whilst it does achieve a larger level of larger level of bedroom numbers, all things considered, it is still acceptable for this location to achieve that. So it is a bit difficult to go over old ground, but from the planning perspective, yes, the application is in accordance with them policies.
All right, thank you with that. I'm not happy about it, but thank you for the explanation.
Councillor Jefferson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just wanted to say that Councillor Lee and Councillor Smith were quite correct. We didn't like this from the beginning. It's gone on an awful long time. And looking at the recommendation on page 31, it's quite clear about the deferrals to secure confirmation of a mitigation plan for the Great Crested Newts and the completion of the Section 106 legal agreement to provide 1, affordable housing and 2, equipped and recreational play. The next bit is once this has been completed, I see the piece which actually says if the 106 agreement has not been completed, then it will be refused. So it's there in the recommendation, and I think the officers have tried very hard to put together a very good agenda here with all the information. And I've heard what everyone said, and we all agree, but there just isn't a reason to refuse it today. And I'm not going to say I'm happy to go along with the mover and the seconder, but it's something we have to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jefferson. I don't think we have any other speakers. So we have, go ahead.
Yeah, it's been proposed and seconded to defer this application to secure the confirmation of mitigation plan for the Great Crested Newts and secure the completion of a Section 106 legal agreement to provide the affordable housing contribution, equipment and recreation play area contribution. Once it's been completed, the application can be delegated for approval subject to the conditions listed in the report. If the Section 106 agreement has not been completed within 3 months of the date of the committee, this application can be delegated refusal. And along with that, we also have the condition as referred to in the officer's update mentioned earlier, that inclusion of that condition. So all those in favour of this proposal to delegate for approval for delegated deferred decision delegated to officers for approval, please raise your hands. And that's 8. And all those against this proposal, please raise your hand. So this has been carried to delegate the decision for officer approval.
Thank you. I think we'll just have a short break for a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Right, folks, we're restarting the meeting. Okay, we're turning to item 5. This is sighting the static caravan, and this is in southwest of Koenigarpel bungalow in Ralston. Do we have any updates on this?
No updates, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Got it. We have a speaker on this item, Mr. Horseman. Just press the button so the light comes on, that's it. And you have 3 minutes. You'll be given a reminder when 30 seconds remain.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. We have owned the paddock in Ralston for 10 years. The main purpose of its purchase was to house rare breed poultry. It is surrounded by fields and woodland and is approximately 5 miles from our home, hence the need for a welfare caravan on site for toilet washing facilities and to have shelter and storage. The present one is around 36 years old and is no longer fit for purpose. In 10 years there has been no complaints regarding its presence. It would also be very beneficial to have a larger caravan as we now look after 2 younger granddaughters, aged 2 and 3, who we help to care for. Ruby, who is 3, is disabled and was diagnosed with juvenile arthritis when a baby. Although she is now mobile and able to walk independently, she requires more room to manoeuvre herself around. As my wife also has several health issues, we care for the girls together as a team. As Rita is unable to lift Ruby, for example, I'm semi-retired to enable me to provide this care as well as keeping the poultry. As it's necessary for me to spend a considerable amount of time at the paddock, I have in excess of 100 chickens at present. We all need to be there together. A further aspect for the girls being there is to encourage their appreciation of the importance of nature and the countryside. As well as me being a member of the Rare Breed Survival Trust, we are both members of the Yorkshire Wildlife Trust and the Woodland Trust, which includes the grandchildren. Some of the birds I keep are on the Rare Breeds watch list with the Rare Breed Survival Trust. We cut the paddock only once a year to allow the growth of many different grasses and wildflowers to attract bees, butterflies, etc. There are also barn owls nearby who use the paddock to hunt for food. Last year, we were lucky enough to buy the small area of woodland, which has the small clearing where the proposed caravan would be sited. It would not be visible to anyone passing the paddock. We have taken advice from both the Yorkshire Wildlife Trust and the Woodland Trust as to how we can improve the woodland to help it flourish and encourage more wildlife. All our grandchildren will be a part of this. We hope that the potential siting of the caravan will have no impact on anyone else, but it would have a significant positive effect on the quality of our life as an extended family. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Just turn your slide and take a seat back in the gallery. Councillor Heslop Mullins.
I can see no problems with this, so I would like to move approval based on officers' recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Heslop Mullins. And Councillor Jefferson, I think, was.
Thank you. Well, as it's in my area, which is North Holderness, I would like to say that I have no problem with this whatsoever. This caravan has been there for a long, long time. You cannot see it from the road. It's actually in the countryside, truly. And to me, I think that the agenda item is very self-explanatory. It tells us everything. And I only would point out on the conditions at item 2, it says the static caravan hereby approved shall not be occupied at any time for residential purposes or for overnight sleeping, and will only be used in connection with the existing breeding. And I believe that that would be as it's been for the last 10 years. So I have no problem in seconding Councillor Heslop Mullins. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jefferson. Councillor Norman.
Thank you,
Taking them
Chair.
in order.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question for Tom, if I may. We mentioned it, and it mentions in the conclusion that the caravan would not be connected to any main services with foul waste being disposed off site. The applicant has just mentioned that it will be used for toilet facilities. Do we know how that's going to be managed at present?
Through the chair, not specifically, but we have put a condition on for them to provide a scheme to us.
Councillor Lee.
Just a quick question, and I'm quite positive about this one. Is there any restriction, can I ask, of what can be stored within the caravan? I think Mappleton Council was concerned about sort of medical things, for example, within there, and just wanted to check whether there's any restriction on that because I can't see any.
There's no restriction on specifically what they can store in there, so long as it is to do with the function on the site.
Thank you. Councillor Robson.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to point out that we have another situation here where a parish council has voiced strong objections about an application and then haven't even come to committee, shown up to defend their objections. And so, not wholly for that reason, but largely for that reason, I would like to support this application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So I think we have move and second for approval on this, don't we? And no hands up, so we'll go for the vote.
It's been moved and seconded to approve this application as per the officer recommendation with the conditions as set out within the officer's report. All those in favour of this proposal to approve, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous approved.
Thank you. That application is approved. Okay, so we move on to item 7. This is the one at St Paul's Way, Ticton. Any updates on it?
No updates, Madam Chairman.
Okay, and we have one speaker, who is Mr. Tebay. Okay, just press the button in front of you and you have 3 minutes with a reminder when 30 seconds remain.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I'll try and keep it brief, but I did feel like I needed to come along and represent myself since we've come to this meeting. So really, I'll probably start off and just talk a little bit about who we are. I'm the applicant along with my wife. We're a young family. We've got one baby, under 1, born last December. We got him home Christmas Eve, and we've got another child, 3 and a bit. So he's a preschooler. He'll be starting school next year in Ticton, hopefully. Yeah, we wanted to do this development to our property because at the moment, you can see on the plans, you've got the kitchen downstairs, you've got the living space upstairs. And obviously with 2 young kids, especially when if I'm at work and my wife's at home with both of them, that can be quite difficult going up and down the stairs just to get a drink or a snack for a toddler or baby or do the lunches. Obviously, you can't leave them unattended, and even the older ones still, he needs help on the stairs doing that safely. So there is like a kind of safety concern along with that. So really what we're trying to do is just improve the house for our needs, to meet the needs of our family. We want to stay in Ticton. It's a great location. You know, I cycle to work in Beverley, and I'll be hoping that my kids can cycle around to get about as they get older as well. That would be really nice. So yeah, the current use of the garage is not as a garage because we have a, as you can see in that picture, the purple one, that's our family car. It's a Seat Leon Estate. So it's not one of these mega SUVs that a lot of people are driving around. And even that, it doesn't fit in the garage. The garage is just a place where like empty cardboard boxes go for a bit before they end up in the recycling bin. It's got the tumble dryer in there. So yeah, we're here today because the parish council raised a strong objection in their words. I don't think they're here today, but yeah, they cited parking issues on the estate. Now, not on our end of the estate. As you can see, it's a cul-de-sac. We're not aware of any massive parking issues or conflicts. I think that's evidenced by the fact that there hasn't been any public objections to it at all. And anecdotally, we get on well with our neighbours, and none of them have even informally raised any concerns about it at all with me. So it did raise an eyebrow when we saw that, and I don't think the parish council have brought any evidence of that to the report at all. So yeah, one thing that we thought was there just seemed to be a little bit of an inconsistency, because in that same meeting they approved another development in the village that had a garage conversion, and just a quick look on the planning portal shows you a development with a garage conversion down our street, which apparently they're concerned about, was also approved by the parish council. So it raised my eyebrow, just a lack of consistency, a lack of evidence provided by the parish council about that.
That's your 3 minutes, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Tebay, just take a seat back in the gallery. Just wait for the gentleman to sit down. So it was Councillor Smith first.
Thank you, Chair. I've watched you speak 'cause it's in my ward. I know the street very well because I know that letterbox very well as well. I understand why the parish council brought up their point. However, I think that this should be approved, because knowing that street, when I go down there, I don't see many parking problems. I don't see many issues. And I agree with what the applicants just said, and it's acknowledged in the report that the garage is too small to store a vehicle anyway. So given the fact their family's growing, given the fact they want to stay in the village, I'd be happy to support the officer's recommendation for approval. So I'd like to move approval.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I think next was Councillor Robson.
Thank you, Chair. It's a little bit of deja vu here, because on the previous application, I kind of wondered, where's this parish council who are strongly objecting? And we have the same situation here again. And if the local councillor himself, who knows the area very well, knows the street, says it's not a problem, then I'm happy to go along with that as well. So I would second approval of this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Jefferson, no, Councillor Norman next. Okay, Councillor Jefferson.
Well, I just wanted to say, obviously, it's been proposed and seconded, and it's down for approval, and I don't think there should be any problem at all. To me, there seemed to be an awful lot of parking in that area, which we don't have that joy of in Hornsey. You know, I mean, even publicity, nobody's complaining. So you would think, wouldn't you, if there was a problem, somebody would come forward. So I have no problem with this one at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Norman. Right, so we have moved and seconded for.
It's been proposed and seconded to approve this application as per the officer recommendation with the conditions as set out within the officer's report. All those in favour of this proposal to approve, please raise your hand. That's unanimous, approved.
Smiling. Is that done? Is that? I know. Mind you, I suppose we haven't lost anything. Still on.
Can I have members' attention, please? I'm just going to hand over to Michelle.
Okay. So this is the part that we do the appeals, but before we go to the appeals, I just wanted to address some of the comments that were made about the parish council and their representation at this meeting. So the process is that they have their own parish council meetings and their comments are submitted in the report. We don't have the option for them to speak. They're not able to register to speak at this meeting. We take their comments through the officer report. So it's entirely appropriate that they call it, you know, they mention something and they don't come here to speak. That's absolutely fine because there's a process for that. Is that okay?
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Monica, so are you saying that they can't send anyone to a meeting to put forward what they object to?
We don't allow them to register to speak at the meeting. We don't have that option because they have their own meetings and that's captured it within the officer's report.
We'll just
but they cannot register to speak. That's correct.
But unless if they don't tell us why they're objecting, i.e., we strongly object to,
the report does cover that. It's in the report.
Can we just get Gemma in?
Yeah, just to add and to agree entirely with what Michelle's saying, no, that we don't invite the parish council to come. They submit their comments very much like all the other consultees. They submit their comments and they should hopefully provide us with some detail as to why they call it in. Sometimes parish councillors do attend, but in a personal capacity, not as a representative of the parish council. So we do sometimes see them there, but it's not a requirement for us to involve them.
As the parish council is usually made up of residents, and maybe I made a mistake in saying that the parish council isn't represented. What I should have said is the residents who are on the parish council could come and if the objections are that strongly. So it's a point of clarification, but thank you for that.
And also just through the chair, if I may, councillors, when you look in the report, we don't accept recommendations from a parish council if they don't specifically tell us whether they are approving or refusing and give us their reasoning why. So that should be listed in the report.
Okay, thank you, Tom. So we're going to move on now to the appeal decisions, if you're on the right page. And who are we starting with?
It's me for all the appeals today. So Tom can have a break now. So there's 6 appeals. So I'll just trot through them. If you've got questions, please do let me know. So just done a couple of slides for each one, just to help you give a bit of context of what we're looking at. This application, this is a long-running case at Myers Farmhouse in North Newbold. So one of these applications from the past did actually come before committee, but it was probably a previous committee to this one. So we did a site visit. So the application related to this listed farmhouse, and the application was for this glazed link on the back here. So you've got the principal main listed building and then an outbuilding that had been converted in the past, and the application was seeking to make a connection, an external connection through a glazed link, so the 2 parts of the building would be more easily connected inside. So the complication of this was that this is as a listed building, so there's been a listed building consent application and a planning application. We've had about 3 or 4 now. The planning appeal had never actually managed to get to planning appeal stage. The appellant had missed the deadline a couple of times. So a listed building consent appeal went through last year and was actually allowed on appeal. So they do have listed building consent to erect this glass link, but they also need planning permission. So this application that's before us on this appeal was just for the planning permission. This was refused, having had the listed building consent granted, only on grounds of amenity for the residents of the neighbouring properties. So previously we had maintained objections in heritage terms and conservation terms, and having lost the appeal on the listed building consent, obviously we set those aside. So this planning application was only refused in relation to amenity. It's quite a tricky site to show photographs of because it's really quite constrained. But what we're looking at here is the back of the main listed building and then the outbuilding, and the link would be in this area here. And the impact on the neighbour. So this is the view from the neighbour's property, and that area there you can see is where they want this glass link. So the main issue, like I said, it was an overlooking issue to this neighbour who's got a small garden and a conservatory and windows in the back. I say it's quite a straightforward decision, and the inspector accepted and agreed with our reasoning on that. So this was dismissed on the grounds of the impact on the amenities of this resident here, which sort of moves it forward. I don't know where the applicant will go next with this one. It's a tricky one because Previously, the applicant had proposed, I don't know if you can see on this plan, you probably not, but a band up here, a sort of eye level of opaque glass to try and reduce the overlooking issues, but the rest of the thing would be clear glass. If they were to try and obscure the entire structure to address the overlooking, you're then introducing a further heritage issue because you're blocking views of the building through. So it's quite a complex issue, that one. And we'll see where we go next on that one.
Victoria, can I just ask you, is that the one we visited? I think we did.
Yes, we did.
About
Probably
2 or 3 years
before
ago.
COVID, I think. It feels like a long time ago.
About
Yeah.
3 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So the next one, this is at Kaywood Drive at Skirler. This was a domestic extension householder application. It was for dormer extensions onto an existing property, semi-detached bungalow, residential area of Skirler. And if you know Skirler, there's lots of areas of Skirler with dormer extensions. So often we will accept these. The issue with this one was basically to do with design and scale. You can see that the proposal was for large dormer filling the front and also the rear elevations, really almost filling the entire roof slope, front and back. Didn't comply with our design guidance. And you can see the next door property, it's a semi, has a dormer, but it's much smaller. You can see on the photograph here, all the other properties in the row have got these sort of much smaller box style dormers with set up from the eave, set down from the ridge. And this one was just not going to tie in with that style. It was just going to look quite alien in the context. The application also proposed a pitched roof onto the existing garage, which we didn't have an issue with, but in having to determine the application as submitted, it was a refuse, but only on relation to the dormer design. And again, the inspector agreed on this one on design and actually went further than us because we'd refused it on design of the front dormer. They're both actually the same design. We'd conceded that on the back it was a little bit less sensitive. They probably could get away with a larger dormer, but the inspector actually said the design of both was unacceptable. So this was actually a split decision from the inspectorate. So the inspector allowed them to do the garage work, but dismissed the works in relation to the dormers. So in respect of our reason for refusal, that was sustained. Yeah.
So can I just ask, could the rear dormer not have been erected on a permitted development?
Yes, possibly. That's something we will have mentioned our officer report. Obviously,
into a highway.
when it comes forward as a scheme together, obviously we have to determine what's in front of us. If the applicant did still want to do a rear dormer, it's possible they would have permitted development rights for something similar, but obviously they couldn't do that. If they did that with the front dormer, then it would need planning permission. So that may be something that they'll look at, or perhaps coming forward with an amended scheme for the front, which would be more acceptable.
Can I say something, please? I've sold plenty of these properties. They were built by Sutton Homes, and they're all over the East Riding, and it's a very common move. You know, all right, they finish up with 4 decent bedrooms. Unfortunately, very small living space downstairs, but they accept that.
Okay. So this next one, this was a committee decision. You may remember it was only maybe late last year. So this was an application for a stable block, and this is on land you'll be familiar with Enholmes Farm, the listed farmstead we've got over here south of Patrington. This was land across from the farm site itself, a large paddock area as you come in from Patrington up here. This large paddock area here currently, or previously should I say, was just an undeveloped piece of land. There's a tree belt down here. And then you've got all the buildings here associated with the former model farm, which have been converted into residential dwellings. So this came forward for a stable block development, relatively modest, just a stable building, and some associated hard standing and access, etc. We had given pre-application advice on this, and advice, unfortunately, although this type of thing would normally be acceptable in the countryside, because of its location within the setting of the listed farmstead, we raised a concern about how that would relate to the setting. We had conservation objection. So we did recommend this refusal. Obviously, it came before you as members, and you might remember there was obviously there was some support from local residents, and obviously the applicant themselves wanting support. That was the actual proposal there. So it's been refused in line with officer recommendation. The stable block would have been sited roughly about here in front of this tree line, and on the right hand side you can just see the edge of the farmstead and Enholmes Farm. And then this is just a view into where the access would be created. The one thing to mention with this one is after the committee decision, the applicant actually did go ahead and do the development. And you can see the photograph here. It's actually not as per the plans. They've added extra buildings. So at the time the inspector went down to make their visit, they would have seen actually the development there in place. This one was dismissed. The council's reason for refusal was upheld, agreed with the impact on the Enholmes Farm. So unfortunately, that leaves us now with obviously an enforcement case, and obviously we've started now to make contact with the applicant to start that process, and hopefully either see if they'll remove the development without a notice, but if not, it will be likely leading to an enforcement notice on that one. The next one, this is Managarth in Hompton. So this is, if you know Hompton, it's a small, quiet village. This is a small development of 4 dwellings carried out within the last 10, 15 years. This property here was built, but then let out as holiday accommodation rather than just as a single dwelling. So this came in, normally if you use a dwelling for holiday accommodation and it's self-contained, it's usually not a change of use. But there has been case law in recent years that says the larger properties, when you end up with multiple groups of people staying together, can constitute a material change of use. And this was one example where we felt, because of the size of the property and actually its relationship, it's an odd layout. The access coming in here is a shared access for all of these 4 houses, so it's quite close knit. So that one came in as an application, as a retrospective application. That's the property itself. It's a 4-bedroom house, but it does have capacity to take, they advertise for up to 10 people. You probably could get more in if people brought camp beds. It's quite large. And then you've got garden area, etc. at the back. And those are the neighbours you can see that are off this shared drive area. So this one was quite controversial locally. We had lots of objection, particularly from these residents who live in these properties. Their experience of the property being let was quite negative. They'd had lots of problems with people parking indiscriminately, noise, disturbance, and just generally they felt it wasn't appropriate in this. As I say, it's quiet. It is a quiet village, is Hompton. So we actually refused this application. We did determine in the end that we didn't think it was the right place for this sort of transient community coming and going, potentially large groups, potentially different families coming together. And as you know, people, when they're away on holiday, might be a little bit more carefree than at home and not quite so considerate of their neighbours. So we have had a few cases before. We had the one out at Flamborough, which we refused and again dismissed on appeal. So following that line, we did refuse this one. And this one, again, a really short decision from the inspector, but actually just a dismissal and agreement with our reason for refusal on being an unsuitable site for this type of use. So another one with the enforcement team to make sure we get compliance on that one. So a good outcome on that one. The next one, this is Enholmes Farm again, but actually the main part of the farmstead. This one was for a bin storage building. So apologies for this plan being really small, but this section of the front of the Enholmes site is a large 2-storey building converted into multiple properties. It used to be the engine house to the farmstead. The application was for a bin store in this edge here, but as you sort of approach into the engine shed area, that's the bin store. Again, it's a retrospective application. So when this is the engine shed building here, which has been converted. When that was approved, the bin storage was meant to be in an enclosed area with some screening, and the applicant had gone ahead and built this instead. We'd refused the application. We'd had objection from conservation. You can see this is the bin store here, how it relates to the engine shed. We'd had objection from conservation that it detracts from the setting of the listed building. So we'd refused the application. And unfortunately, in this case, the inspector actually allowed the appeal. Did identify that the building wasn't overly sympathetic to the setting. However, did also then find there was some public benefit in being able to provide bin storage areas and keep them out of the way. So that was allowed. The main disappointing part of this one is you can see that there is a bit of landscaping that's gone in, and I think over time it probably will settle. But the inspector didn't impose any conditions or restrictions for that to be retained, or indeed any condition that actually requires it to be used by the properties for bin storage. So the public benefit, whether that will really be realised, we don't know, but a bit disappointing on that one. We had also already served an enforcement notice on this one, which was subsequently withdrawn, having now them given planning permission. So disappointing one, that one. And the last one, it's the last one. Yeah, so this one, again, a bit of an enforcement case on this one. It's a site that's been around on my radar for a long time in this area. So just to very quickly give you the history of this site, because it is relevant. You had originally a little bungalow here. This was a horticultural site, so there was glass houses, in fact, on all of this area, glass houses around here. This large shed here was approved as a packing shed in association with the horticultural unit. That ceased to operate some time ago. The planning permission was then given for some lakes and fishing lakes. The building was permitted to be converted into initially a joinery workshop and later a cafe and sort of tackle room for the fishing lakes. So it's had multiple things going on. Over that time, the applicant sold off the house that belonged to the site. So this is now in third party ownership, but the applicant retained all the rest of it. And actually tried to get planning permission to convert this building into a dwelling. That was refused and allowed on appeal. But unfortunately, later, the applicant did succeed in obtaining a law development certificate for that, having lived in it without permission and not being detected for the relevant period. So there is a legitimate residential use in this building. So the application we had here, which is before the appeal, was to actually change this building into residential use at first floor and then make a cafe restaurant again at ground floor. But also there's currently a caravan on the land over here near the stables, and they wanted to keep that, but convert it, use it as a sort of annex to the host dwelling. So we refused this application. Just to be of context, here's the site. So that's the building I was mentioning that's now got lawful use. This is a stable block. This is the lake beyond. And then this is just a closer up view here. So we refused this on 3 reasons. There was we had a concern about policy conflict with having a new, essentially a town centre use, a cafe restaurant use in the countryside that wasn't needed. So previously when there was a cafe, it was in connection with the fishing lake that no longer operates. So it was a proposal just for a standalone commercial use that just wasn't justified. They hadn't done the policy requirements to sequentially consider whether there was better locations in more sustainable locations. Secondly, the amenity of the residents of the neighbouring property. As I said, this fence here is the boundary with that property, which is now in third party ownership. There would have been car parking areas and bin storage on this side here. So we had a concern about the relationship between those two. When there was previously a cafe here, there was a condition that it could only be operated by who was in the house. And obviously that couldn't now be imposed because they've been separated. So we weren't happy. They've got a very small garden, this property, that's been left behind. You can just see there, it's really quite tight. So the relationship there just wasn't really acceptable. And then also we considered that the caravan use would tantamount to a separate dwelling. Obviously a static caravan has all the facilities to be occupied without needing to come into the main house. So we treated that as essentially being a separate dwelling in the countryside. So in dismissing the appeal, the inspector said it didn't agree with us on the annex point. Inspector's mind was that could be easily a condition to make sure it was an associated use rather than a separate use. Still have my doubts about that, whether that would realistically be worthwhile, but that was the inspector's view. Did agree with us though on the principal use in terms of retail impact in the countryside and also the amenity relationship with this property here. So again, that one was dismissed. So 5 out of 6 wasn't too bad.
Thank you.
Need to organise.
So that ends our meeting.